Hello and welcome back to the channel. Sorry I've been gone for so long. I lost all the footage to the Marlin firmware update video that I was doing, so I'm going to scratch everything that I did from there and start over again. And instead of downloading the firmware from the Robo 3D website, we are going to instead install the Marlin firmware from the Marlin website using the latest release candidate, or at least the stable release candidate that we have. I want to say that the release candidate that they use... Yeah, the release candidate that they use on the Robo 3D on the website is release candidate 2. I don't know if that's the latest release candidate that's out there, that's stable, but release candidate 2 is what Robo 3D used last for their R1+. So we're going to use the latest stable release candidate to program it to the Robo 3D, and we're going to start by just downloading the firmware, uploading it to the printer, and seeing what changes we have to make for it to work properly. Besides the LCD screen, this is a completely stock R1+, and so this should work for your R1 or R1+ model, or any 3D printer you're using for that matter. If you're just starting with like a Prusa i3, a Robo 3D that you got off secondhand, or anything else that's open source and runs Marlin, you can use this video to program whatever 3D printer you're using. So, without further ado, let me get my screen capture software running, and let's download the latest release candidate for Marlin. So we're going to jump over to the screen recorder right now.
So the first thing we're going to need is a slicer. I use Cura myself. 15.04.6. And if you go to the second link here from Ultimaker, they have a list of all the available downloads. They do have newer versions, but I haven't actually played with the newer versions, so I'm comfortable using 15.04.6. And that's the latest version of the 15 model that they'd made. And then you can just say, I don't want to use my personal information, and download that. Next thing we're going to need is Arduino. So you're going to go to arduino.cc. I'll have all the links in the description. But arduino.cc is going to be what you use for uploading the firmware. And then lastly, we're going to need Marlin firmware. Here, I'll actually go to the official site of Marlin and then download the latest release. And I have donated in the past, so I'm just downloading right now.
Alright, so now we've downloaded Arduino, Cura, and the latest Marlin firmware upgrade. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to flash the Marlin firmware upgrade into the Robo 3D with Arduino, and I'll show you how to do that on the screen recorder right now.
So I put in my downloads folder, Marlin, and all I have to do is go to Marlin, and the Marlin dot, I think it's an INO. So the Marlin file opens up with Marlin and all of the configuration files, as well as the pins.h, conditionals.h, and every other single .h file that there is.
So we're just going to upload this raw Arduino file to the Robo 3D and see how it performs once we upload the raw file to it. Alright, so we've run into a bit of an error. I'm going to go ahead and diagnose the error real fast so that if you run into this issue with the latest Arduino and the latest Marlin firmware, we're going to see what happened.
So all I did wrong here was have the wrong port, so we need to go to an Arduino Mega and make sure the port that I have selected, and the port that I have selected is going to be COM3. So we're going to go ahead and upload one more time and make sure that works.
So essentially all you have to do is select Arduino Mega 2560 and select in the Tools menu what port you're going on, and it should upload directly to your Robo 3D, Prusa i3, CS10, whatever 3D printer you're working on that runs Marlin. It should upload immediately with no problems as long as you have the port selected and Arduino Mega, if your 3D printer is, of course, running with an Arduino Mega. Alright, so it's done uploading, and right now the LCD is not going to be responsive because the LCD is not in control of what's going on. So what we're going to do is turn the 3D printer on, and then we're going to go into Cura 15.04.6. That's the version that I use. You can download it for free at the Ultimaker website. So when Cura opens up, it's going to prompt you to install some initial settings for the 3D printer. We're going to use the Robo 3D R1. Even though the specifications are off by a little bit, we're going to make sure that they're correct later on. So right now, we're going to go to Next, go to Other, and then Robo 3D R1 is what we're going to select. If you're using a Robo 3D R1, if you're using a different type of printer, make sure you select that printer, and then we'll verify the dimensions later on. Make sure you say no to if there's available Cura updates. We're not going to download the newest version of Cura, we're going to be using the older version. And the first thing you're going to do is go to File, Preferences, Print Window Type, and you're going to change that to Pronter Face UI so we have more idea of what's going on with the 3D printer. Then from the main screen, all you're going to have to do is hit Control P for print. It's going to open the Pronter Face UI on the screen right now. And then as soon as it opens the serial port to the 3D printer, we're going to send the simple command G28. That will home the 3D printer. If you want to know any more commands that come with the G code and M code that come with 3D printer, I have a whole video describing that, and I'll try to link that in the description below, and as well as one of the things somewhere at the top. So I just said the G28. And you'll notice that the 3D printer goes the wrong way. This is because we're using the stock Marlin firmware. It doesn't understand what we've enabled on the 3D printer. It thinks that the x-axis is in the wrong direction, it thinks that the y-axis has already been hit, and we just have a whole bunch of problems with the Marlin firmware. So we're going to go to the configuration.h file right now and configure that. So for right now, I'm going to turn the 3D printer off, just so you can hear me a little bit better, as I'm working in the configuration.h file. And again, all you have to do is open Marlin on the software, and then go to configuration.h, and this is pretty much where all of the changes occur. Now, let's see here. We're first going to scroll down to extruder filament diameter. We use 1.75. We have extruder 1. Motherboard 1.4 is good. Baud rate 2500 or 250,000 is what we use. All the rest of this is good. I'm kind of scrolling super fast through this, so don't mind me. We do use control temperature sensor 1. For the bed, we also use 1, so you can change that value on line 318. I'll change all this stuff later. The min's good. The max is okay for what I'm doing. I'll do a PID tune later. Max bed power is good. Prevent cold extrusion, absolutely. Prevent lathe extrusion, good stuff. That's good. Okay, this is where we might have some problems here. I'm not going to change any of these yet for the end stop inverting because I'm not sure whether or not the motors are actually moving in the correct direction. I'm very certain the y-axis is already wrong, but I'll do that later.
So let's scroll down a little bit. We just want to make sure the motors are moving in the correct directions first. So this is all good. This is all good for now. Let's see here. There it is. So on line 851 on the newest release at the time of this video's release, the Marlin firmware has invert X direction false, invert Y direction true, and invert Z direction false. So we need to change that up a little bit. We know the X direction, when we did the G28, moved in the wrong direction. So we're going to change that to true, all lowercase. And the Y direction, I'm not sure if that worked properly, so I'm going to leave that as true for right now. And as far as the Z direction goes, I don't think it's wrong, but I'm going to change it anyways to true. So let's upload that. And as soon as it's uploaded to the 3D printer, we will see whether or not our X direction, Y direction, and Z direction are all moving in the correct orientation. So once the compilation is done in the sketch, we're going to jump back to Cura. And you do need to wait for the upload to finish before you move to Cura. So we're just waiting a little bit for that. Alright, so it's uploading right now. And it's currently done uploading. So we're going to go back to Cura, turn the 3D printer on, hit Control P to just bring up the prompter face UI once more. And as soon as it loads, we're going to type the command G28 and see which way the motors try to move. Alright, so now the X-axis is moving in the correct direction. And the Y-axis is moving in the incorrect direction. And of course you'll hear that noise after a while because it's moving in the wrong direction. So we're going to close our prompter face UI. This disables the serial communication between the 3D printer. Jump back to Marlin and turn the invert Y direction to false. So now we've changed the invert Y direction to false. So right now we have true for invert X direction, false for invert Y direction, and we still need to calibrate the Z axis. Alright, so we're done uploading with the invert Y direction. We're going to hit Control P in prompter face UI once more, turn the 3D printer back on. And then we're going to type G28. Alright, so now the Y-axis is moving in the correct direction. Alright, so we have X and Y moving in the correct direction. Z may not be moving in the right direction, but we're going to test that in just a quick second. So run G28 once more. So it looks like the Z-axis is moving upwards right now, so we're going to go Tool Up, and Tool Up works. So Tool Up 10 millimeters worked on the axis. So we know that in our Marlin firmware, that the invert Z direction as true is good. Now, if you wired the motor incorrectly, this would still work. So instead of rewiring the 3D printer, you would just go into the firmware and just change some settings. And then depending on what you think is easier, updating software or changing hardware, it's the exact same thing. You're inverting the direction. You can either flip the motor around and set all the values to true or false, and it would work the exact same way. We just found our G28. The Z-axis keeps moving up, so that means that the logic on the Z-axis is inverted. So we're going to go up. Let's see here. Skip all that, skip all that, skip all that. All right. End stop inverting. For the Z-axis, everything's set to false by default on the Marlin extension. We're going to change that to true in lowercase. Wow, I cannot spell today. And we're going to upload that to the Marlin, or we're going to upload that to the Robo 3, turn it back on, and when it's done uploading, we're going to run the same command, G28.
And run another G28. Alright, so now you see that it's moving down for the Z-axis, and as soon as it gets to the bottom, it should stop. Perfect. That's what we wanted to see. So now we've calibrated the X, Y, and Z axis both on the logic and the motion. So now we can run G1, Z5. That should raise it 5 millimeters. It's not raising it 5 millimeters because our steps per unit is off right now. And we're going to go to G1, X200. And if it's calibrated correctly, which it's probably not, it'll go to the end of the bed. Now that wasn't completely to the end of the bed. That could either be the x-axis per millimeter or the fact that that was actually 200 millimeters. I'll measure and check in a minute. We're going to do the same thing for the y-axis and do G1 Y200, and that should move 200 millimeters in the y direction. It looks pretty good. And then we're going to do G1 X100 Y100. And that should bring us to about the center of the 3D printer. So this lets you know that you have pretty much all of the directions enabled. This is the first step in getting new Marlin firmware to work properly with your 3D printer.